morning.
Good morning. It's been a morning of running around.
Yeah.
But
Super.
I think that we've both been looking forward to this.
After like more than a month of planning.
I know, which is short, huh?
Yeah.
So, Get a Clue, a Thinker's
Thinker's
podcast,
podcast.
is what we came up with, obviously.
It's our baby.
Yeah, because Clou Social is a company I founded, and Thinker is the name of your company. So
Yeah.
it really made sense and came together very nicely.
Yeah.
So I'm Christelle.
I'm Misch.
I founded Clou Social about a year ago. And not too long after that, I reconnected with you.
After,
How
I
many
think that was
years?
mid-year last year.
Yeah.
I met with Holly
Yeah.
for lunch, over lunch. And then when she found out that I set up my own marketing agency,
Yeah.
Thinker, she told me you should meet Christelle.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you're gonna do things together.
So that was on, I think that was on July of last year.
That was July. That was like
Yeah.
a few weeks before you were supposed to leave for Manila.
June. You're right, because I made the
Yeah.
big move to Manila out of nowhere
Yeah.
on June, and I was like 3 months into running this startup company of mine, and it grew so fast that I didn't
Yeah.
even know what it really took to start a business. And then it's like you fell from the sky and was an answered prayer.
Same
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. I was like, I just need someone to run my life and to help
Yeah.
me and to manage me. And
From there, we worked on two brands
Two brands
already.
together.
And hopefully many more to come.
Yes, yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. And so it's been a good compliment if we share our story of how we initially met. I think
Yes.
it's the true journey of timing and how
Timing.
everything really happens.
And like taking the big leap.
exactly.
It's really taking the big
when
leap.
you take the big leap.
Get a clue.
A Thinker's Podcast.
So that was 2017.
2017.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was 21 years old, I remember. And I was gonna buy a PR company.
Yeah. It was one of the big PR and events company from Cebu.
In Cebu. And I was introduced to both of you,
Yes.
two other partners. I was
Yes.
21 years old, and I remember being like, I think I want to buy a PR company.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what that meant back then, but I remember having the check in my pocket that
Mhm.
day, and I don't know, it fell through. It wasn't the right timing, I
It wasn't the
guess.
right timing. I even cried when it fell through because I was so
Yeah.
excited to have my own events company.
Yeah, so
Like,
were
it
you
was
always...
a dream of mine. I've always wanted to
Yeah.
have one.
And it's only really, I guess, life happened, the pandemic happened, everything
Yeah.
unfolded as it should.
Yeah, after 16 years of working a corporate job, I wanted to do this. If I don't do it, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah. It's so funny. When I moved back 2016 from university was when I first dissociated from my last name. I was 21 years old and I was like, I want to make it on my own.
I don't want to be a dechanko.
I don't want to. Yeah, so a lot of people until today, people I just meet, they'll be like, they think my last name is Lou. It's not actually Lou. But that's where Clou really came from. So Christelle and then Lou. And when I first Googled it, I remember seeing that it meant the chief point of interest. I was like, yeah, it makes sense.
Makes sense.
And then I remember when I Googled it, my first logo was the Cartier Justin Clou bracelet that was a nail. And that became very symbolic for me as the company unfolded. Because it was never legit back then. It was just branding. I made an Instagram account.
Yeah.
So shout out to my original followers of it was then called Clou Communications, which
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was Clou Communications because there was a speaker who came in college
Mhm.
and he told me about his communications company with a very similar name. And I remember that was the first time in my life I said, your job is what I want. So what he used to do is he'd spend a week or weeks with different influential people and families,
Mhm.
and he would document their lives. And he would create what he called was legacy videos. And because my family is in the funeral industry, I was
Yeah.
like, this is the perfect avenue
Yeah.
to still do what I want to do and to work with my family also. And so that's when Clou Communications was born. And it was
so that was your
only-
inspiration.
Yeah, so that's eventually I was really like, one day I'm gonna tell people stories somehow.
Yes.
But I didn't realize that the first story I would share was really my own through opening Clou.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a pandemic and a heartbreak for me to get there. As life happens, yeah, I grew up in a very business family. So lunch conversations, dinner conversations were always about business. Nothing really that personal. And I grew up with all girls.
Yes.
So my sisters and I would talk about life, but with my dad, our relationship was very business. So I remember, and I don't think it gets any easier as you have more children, or with each of my sisters and I, but I was so heartbroken. And 3 days later, my dad calls me on the phone because he wasn't in Cebu then. And he was so nervous on the phone. So he was just like trying to be a dad, and he was telling me, you know, it's okay, everything happens for a reason. And I start bawling on the phone. So I think I'm like
Was it the
nervous
first
telling the
time
story.
that
Yeah.
You
I
talked
just
to him in that.
Yeah, so I just started
way?
crying on the phone. He freaked out also, I think. So he was like, just be professional. And that's when I was really confused. Like, it stopped me from crying. And I can laugh about it now. But I remember my mom was so mad. She was just like, you don't tell your daughter to be professional. When you went through a heartbreak, are you supposed to be professional? But I was telling my sisters, I was like, you know what, maybe dad was right. When life gives you lemons,
Yeah. you
make
lemons.
lemonade, but also sell the lemonade.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
that's when I was like, how do I shift my energy into something and do something
That you're really passionate about.
from this life experience?
That you're good at.
Yeah. And that's when I didn't tell anyone, not even my family. One day I just woke up and decided I would make Clou a legitimate business. When my DTI was done 2 weeks later, I remember in our family constitution meeting, it's like an icebreaker. So I was like, I'll start. And then I was like, by the way, I started a business. And mind you, until today, I don't think my parents understand what I do.
How did you feel back then? Was it liberating for you to like tell them na, hey, I have my own business already? Like I grew up from.
Yeah, I think I wasn't looking for permission. And that was the first time in my life I wasn't asking for anyone's validation. And of course, I think I grew up also seeing a lot of the pain that my sisters went through, so I didn't want to do the same. And I was just like, let me just try to do everything in quotation right. So it's like, let me eat healthy, let me exercise, let me work first, and let me put work first. Let me finish school fast, let me be the good daughter. And then I realized I needed to define who I was for myself. And so that's what Clou really did for me. It, I think, became something that was my own.
Yeah.
And then when I launched it, I really didn't think it through. Like, I knew my why. I knew that I wanted to do it to
That's
speak
what's
out.
most important.
Yeah,
Knowing
so
your why.
I didn't understand. Until this day, people still ask me, when I launched especially, they were like, what do you do?
Really?
Yeah, because I launched it in a very, I don't sell that, hey, I'm a social media production company and
you
I
launched
do
it
branding.
differently, yes.
So
yes.
I sold it as like, I was taking photos of myself and a lifestyle and like releasing content and memes, but I was really making that my PR.
Yeah.
And that's how PR works.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta launch something with something different, something
Yes.
untraditional, and get people talking,
Exactly.
which I did.
Yes.
And I think one of my mentors was saying to me, I was like, I honestly, people ask me what I do, and I do so many things that I just don't know. And she was like, Christelle, instead of saying, I don't know, she was like, where do I begin? And I think that's why today I was like, where do we even begin?
Yes.
Because you wear so many hats, I think, as a founder of a company. And you keep, in the beginning, I was always saying yes. And then you also have to learn to
How
say
to say
no.
no. Yeah.
And I think I was sharing this while we were getting ready, but it taught me how to know my boundaries, to also stop seeking validation, and to love social media. Because to me, it's really not the enemy. Yeah.
Wow. You
Yeah.
saying that is like you talking to me directly. Na Misch, you should be on
Yeah.
social media already.
No, it is. Yeah.
Because you were saying earlier
Yeah.
that your parents don't even understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like even a lot of people actually in general, if you tell them what marketing is, they don't like marketing for them is sales when in fact it's not. So that's why
Yeah.
doing this company also and like naming it Thinker, we wanted it like I wanted it to be very, you know, different in such a way where at the same time we educate the brands that I work with that, hey, you know, marketing is very important for your brand to tell your story. So you're saying earlier about telling stories, so
Yeah.
through social media. But the way we do with Thinker is, you know, crafting and yet comprehensively like identifying you as a brand, making your vision come true, your why as a brand. We really think for you.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, I feel like people, founders, there's always a story behind a company. And branding on the outside is one thing.
Yes.
You know, the way you look, of course, your
Yes.
logo, your colors, your fonts,
Yes.
whatever it is, that's one aspect of it.
Yeah.
But that needs to align with the inside.
Yes.
And I always think that
Exactly.
my outer world is actually a reflection of my inner world because we don't
Mhm.
have control of our outer circumstance.
Yes.
So in marketing, it's the same thing where you have so much control of what people perceive of your brand.
Yes.
But people feel a certain way about your brand, and that's not necessarily only because of your exterior, but it's your company values, it's your mission, it's your vision,
Exactly.
it's the communication, it's the message that you're actually
Yes.
putting out.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's really what sticks to people.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
why Thinker's born, because
Yeah.
you know, we like a lot of brands get swallowed by, hey, this is what we look like, this is how we want people to perceive us, but they tend to get swallowed by so many content right now, and people don't really have that attention anymore.
100%. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the thing, like, we are in completely different generations also.
Yes.
And even the generation after me, they consume content and they produce content so differently also that
Yes.
I have to keep up being this kind of company.
Yeah.
But in the same way, there are some things about media that will never change.
True.
And there's also some things that change so quickly.
Yes.
And especially these days, I encourage also the brands that I work with to put a face to their brand, which is nerve-wracking.
It is.
I mean, and that's why when I first put my face to my company, I knew I had to do it because I was my best portfolio at that point. Like, I started with
Yeah.
5 freelance clients, you know, and so of course I had to display myself as a portfolio. And being in a small town in Cebu, I feel like all of my biggest fears about going quotation public with my profiles, even like whether or not it's 1 million followers or like 1,000 or 5 or 1,
Yeah.
when you hear feedback and it's not nice
Yeah.
as a person,
It
I feel
affects
like
you.
it still affects you. And so, I mean, I got the feedback of like being called extra, being called dramatic, like, and I heard those voices.
Mhm.
And it did affect me, but I just had to go back to my why
Yeah.
and to remember that the point of Clou as a company was to encourage people to feel safe in social media. And at the end of the day, the message in that is that you're enough.
Yes.
And that's what I learned. And I learned to also use my voice, because another thing my mentor told me also, because when I told her, I was like, you know, all my fears are happening right now. I hear all the voices. And she was like, Christelle, the voices that you hear that are loud right now,
yours?
no, she was like, that's not your audience.
Mm.
She was like, your audience are the people who are still looking for their voice.
Mm.
And so you don't hear them because they're quiet, but they're listening. And so if you just keep doing what you're doing, knowing your intention,
Mm.
you eventually can impact 1, 2, 3 people. That's already influence, you know?
Exactly. And that's
yeah.
what you did to me. It took me a year to finally do this.
Yeah.
It's a very bold step. I have social media accounts, but I don't post at all. People just tag me.
I know, and that's what I was telling you. I was like, very hard. I'm most excited to see Misch change her profile picture.
I
Because in
haven't
a way,
changed it for like
yeah.
16 years.
Yeah.
I don't know, 8
No,
years?
because that's the
I'm
thing,
not
diba?
sure.
'Cause social media also got a very bad name after a while because it's like
Yeah.
validation seeking, all of this.
Yeah.
But also it can be the complete opposite, where it's like empowering and
Yeah.
you share what you want to share without thinking of other people's
I
judgment.
know, yeah.
Yeah.
Feels like to me when I'm on socials, it feels like I'm out there, like I feel so bare. But I like looking at photos of myself with friends or with my family.
Yeah.
But me doing it, it's very difficult.
Yeah. And I mean, I think this podcast
Very
also is
difficult.
quite bare. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I am exposing and sharing a lot also.
Yes.
But I think at the end of the day, when we first really both sat down, and we didn't even see each other often. It was all online.
It was all online.
Yeah, it was all happening online. But when we first were just like, you know what, this is what I want to do in the start of the year,
Yeah.
or like this year, this is one of my goals, is to start a podcast, and we said it at the same time.
It's so amazing. It's so amazing.
Yeah, I think our point in it also was to be that portfolio for our brands, because it'd make us a
Exactly.
hypocrite if we're telling our clients, and we've been telling the
Yeah,
clients
we've
we
been
work
telling our
with, like,
clients that.
you should put a face to your brand, good. You know,
And we're
it's
not doing
really
it ourselves.
exactly. And so it starts there, where it's like, if we can encourage one person or two people, yeah, it's
Mhm.
scary. That's
Yeah.
not gonna go away.
Yeah.
But everyone also has a story to share, and especially when it comes
Yes.
to businesses, more people actually will buy into your business if they know the story.
If there's a story to tell.
Yeah.
Because, branding touches more on the emotional side of people, and people can't forget what they feel when they see a brand, or when they taste something, or when they feel something.
Yeah.
That's what they can't forget. And, a lot of brands get lost. That's what I said earlier, diba?
Yeah.
Get lost.
No, for sure. And that's why it's
Yeah.
like constantly, the phrase for me, get a clue, has always kind of been my tagline also. But it's always kind of a mystery of what's
Mhm.
next also.
Always. It has to be dynamic, because the world we're living in
Yeah.
now is so dynamic.
Yeah, and you never even know, like, with content these days, like, there is really
Yeah.
no formula. One day it's like a produced formula. The next day it's like a you must be authentic formula.
Yeah.
The next day it's like posting aesthetic or whatever it
And
is.
sometimes you're at the mercy of the digital platforms with how their metrics are being run right now. So,
Yes, 100%. And that's the thing, because someone's always watching. And I tell my clients this also these days, like, don't watch the numbers.
Yes.
Because
I agree,
especially
I
with
agree.
social media right now, people are using it like landing pages. People aren't really following you,
Yes.
but they're watching.
Yes.
And so if you just have a consistent messaging and just go a little bit of an extra mile to connect with your potential audience,
Yes.
eventually
That.
you'll capture that.
Yeah. So what's very important is, of course, knowing your audience, who
Yeah.
you want to target. Because
Yeah.
if you don't know who you want to target, you don't know how you're gonna message your
Yeah.
campaign.
So it's first knowing
or-
yourself. Who are you as a brand?
and
and
why do you
then-
exist.
Yeah. And then knowing exactly who you're going to target
Yeah.
is next. And a lot of times that changes.
That changes.
Like, especially when you start a business.
And that's what's fun about marketing. Because
Yeah.
when you realize that, hey, we unintentionally targeted this kind of market, so there's a potential for us to go into this
Yeah.
new
I-
market.
exactly.
So that's what's interesting about
I think
it.
a lot of it's also psychology, right? With marketing. It's
Yes.
understanding human behavior
Yes.
and human patterns.
Yes.
And me personally, that's always what I was fascinated with,
Me
because
too.
I like connecting with people.
Yeah.
And even with my team internally, whether or not it's an audience I'm reaching, if I'm able as a founder to build a team and create a culture
Yes.
around that
And empower your team.
and empower
That's
that,
important.
I'm good as a company. Of
True.
course, you want to be able to sustain,
Yeah.
because in a business also, you need the money.
You need money.
And that's what I keep saying. When I started putting content out there, I was like, I'm that much more. Yes, it's embarrassing to put my face out there sometimes, but I'm like, I am paying people now. And so if it takes for me to make a post and a few other posts to me so I can get my face out there, get more clients potentially, then I'll do it, because
Yeah.
I have people to pay, legal things to pay, permits to pay.
Bookkeepers.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's why also starting a business and being a founder, I understand it now.
There's a lot of things that you have to look
It's
at.
it's a challenging process.
Very. It's
Yeah.
a very
And that's why I was so
challenging one.
grateful meeting you again and reconnecting with you, because it seemed like, wow, how many years ago we tried to start a company together. I had no idea what that even meant for me. Now that now that I have actually started a company of my own, and at that point, I was just, send help was like on my forehead. I was like, send help. And then it was like, oh, hey, it's Misch. Yeah. And I remember that was like 3 months in, but 7 months in, I wanted out. I was like, I want to
Yes.
close Clou. I was like, I
Yeah.
can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And I was tired and I was just overworked and overwhelmed.
You
And
were
some days,
overwhelmed. You were
some days I
overwhelmed.
am. But
Yeah.
then there's the times that really matter where it's like, oh, I see the marketing working for my client.
Yeah.
Or I can see that it's
completely.
not even about if it's working, but like my client's happy. Or like I am able to train a new employee and hear their story.
Yes.
And like somehow use that in also building onto my why. Because at the end of the day, platform and media, that's social impact. And
Yeah,
that's
that's
so
why.
much impact to change communities. I am just trying to prove to myself, first of all, that I can do whatever I put my mind to. And that everything really just falls into place.
That's why we're doing this podcast. The two of us, we get inspired by the brands we work with and the
Yeah.
brands we want to work with, or the brands that we want to emulate.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's really a platform for kids or our peers to,
Yeah.
get inspired as well to take the leap. And you
Yeah.
don't even have to get the validation, but for as long as you feel like you have relevance, or you
Yeah.
have been a strategic partner to a brand,
Yeah.
or you've helped a friend, like you to me and me to you.
Yeah, definitely, because I couldn't have done this without, I mean, I could be talking to myself also,
Mhm.
which I do on a regular basis, but it would be very different
Yeah.
to start a podcast in that sense,
Yeah.
without having that back and forth conversation,
Yes.
without having a friend to lean on
Yes.
also.
Yeah. And both
and-
our companies really complement what we're doing, so
It does.
it's really the perfect
It does.
marriage.
Yeah, because I remember when I first talked to you about it, like I said, I was just being a yes man.
Yes.
So I felt like if a client would be like, do you offer this service? I'll be like, yeah, I can do it. And so I do it. But then it's like from 5 companies to 20 to
Yeah.
25. Like, and then I'm like, no, Misch, I can't do it.
Mm.
And so to be able to, and this is something that I learned, I think, you can be business-minded and do the operations, but you can also be a creative. But sometimes for me, I stop being creative when I'm running the business. But I don't
That's
want to
true.
lose my creativity.
That's true.
And so now that I've built a team that I could trust to
You can be
able,
more creative now.
I can be creative again.
Or
No.
you're not.
Oh, I think it was just signs and everything coming together, I think.
And timing.
And timing.
Especially if you put your everything, your heart and mind into it. Because
Yeah.
like me, like I was saying earlier, I was working for 16 years.
Yeah.
And then I have 3 kids. So it was a very, very, very big leap for me to do this, to start my own business. I told my husband and my friends that if I don't do this, when will I have the energy and the time to do it? And I feel like it's the best time.
Yeah.
I feel like if I don't do it now, it's not gonna happen. I quit.
Yeah, and after 16
Started from
years.
scratch, and I'm just
Yeah.
so lucky to have friends and peers who understood what I was doing. Thankfully, it was easier for me to build that portfolio already.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's not sustainable if I just rely on people to tell people, hey, Misch is doing Thinker. Misch can help you with marketing. Misch can do events for you.
I mean, word of mouth is still the best form of marketing.
It still is.
Especially in the Philippines where everything is so
Yes.
personal. And
Yeah.
Cebu, in a small town
Yeah.
that we actually both live in.
Yeah. But to
it makes
be
sense.
to
Yeah.
launch and to be different how Thinker will be placed in that sea of other agencies and how Clou will differentiate itself also. This podcast,
This
I
is
hope.
it. Yeah, no, and that's the thing, because I think I got into podcasts when I felt so broken in the pandemic. And I was consuming content like, I don't know if you heard of it, but Women of Impact. And it was people sitting down and sharing their stories. So not just women, founders. How I Built This is one of the podcasts I also follow. And people share their stories of their founder's journey and the challenges you go through as a founder, because there are so many personal stories around that. And it takes moments like that, I think, to really push humans to step up or to just stand up.
Yes.
Really?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
even that, I think for me at one point, going back to your thinker and wanting to kind of stand out, in a small city like Cebu, I felt like a big fish, a big shiny fish in a small pond. And for me, moving to Manila was the best thing.
And you're not going back to Cebu.
I love Cebu. I love Cebu. Don't get me wrong. I love it there. But for where I am right now, the feeling of other people hustling around me drives me. And in Manila, people are hustling. And you feel it.
Yes.
And the thing is, here, it's like, I was in my own head about it probably. If I really wanted to walk out with heels and like an outfit like this in broad daylight in Cebu, I could probably do it. But for me, I felt judgment doing that. But because I grew up there. You know, but here in Manila, if I walked out in this outfit,
It's normal.
there's someone else
It's
with an
normal.
even more bonga outfit than me.
Right.
And then I feel like, oh, it's something I can keep aspiring. I can keep growing.
Yeah. I think you're thriving here.
Yeah, but also thank you. But I think it's also, I hear less of the noise here. In Cebu, I was hearing a lot of the noise that would
Because it's too
sidetrack
small for
me
us.
from focusing on building Clou and really wanting to build this platform and this podcast. But here it's like, the noise is probably still happening behind my back, or maybe I'm just making these stories up in my head, but it doesn't impact me anymore because I don't hear it.
Yeah.
And so that, I just thought of it now, but that goes with brands. That's why you kind of keep also needing to make noise, because out of sight, out of mind.
Yes.
Like-
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But of course, at the end of the day, your messaging still has to be consistent. It
Yeah.
always has to be. And that's what we want to teach the brands also, like through this, our platform and our companies, right? Because
Yeah.
brands, especially the small ones, they have the tendency to deviate from why they are existing and
Yeah.
who they are existing for.
And that's so, as a founder also, if you don't know that, if that's not clearly defined, like I said, running a business is tiring. You just
It is.
will give up.
It is. True.
Yeah.
That's why my husband always tells me, or even prays, that God, I pray that Michelle will remain steadfast.
Yeah.
Steadfast is his word. My word is perseverance, because I think
Yeah.
both terms really speak of us owning new companies. You have to have that
Yeah.
steadfastness and the perseverance to like not give up.
And that's the thing, because I'm excited to share with that, being steadfast and to persevere. It also helps to have people around you
Yes.
that remind you. And that's what I think I learned throughout all of this and throughout the dips and everything, is that I thought I had to do it alone, but then I actually felt people lifted me when I couldn't.
Humans are social.
Yeah, and that's the thing I
We're
realized.
social beings. I
Because
mean.
with this podcast and in the episodes that follow, we're going to continue to share not just our stories, but stories of other founders and other inspiring stories of how they
That's the
stay
intention.
steadfast. Yeah, and how they persevere.
Yeah.
Because it's also nice to hear local stories.
Yes.
When I'm always consuming the podcast that I used to listen to, it's Western media,
It is.
which is amazing. Great, we consume so much of that. But what I wanted to do is also feature local businesses and local stories,
That's
and
what
to
we want.
encourage that. So
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Me too.
I hope you are too.
We want to invite the visionaries, the
Yeah.
innovators, because these are the
Yeah.
people who always persevere and don't really stop.
And the influencers and influential. I know that gets a bad reputation, that name sometimes, and it's
I wonder
misconstrued.
why a lot of influencers don't want to be called influencers these days.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing, because it's changed over time, the meaning that we've given these words. But I must say, it is so brave. I used to judge them. That's the thing. I used to judge people for putting content out there, but I realized I was judging because I was projecting a fear of my own.
Yeah.
But it takes so much to put yourself out there and to create content. My gosh.
It takes so much.
And
It
so
does.
I really
Yes.
applaud people who do. And like I said, whether you have an audience of 1 million or an audience of 500 or 100, to be able to sell not just yourself, but to sell your business takes a thick face.
It
I
does.
really aspire to be in a place where I don't feel shame, if that's authentically something I wanted for myself. And so, of course, like, with having a platform comes great responsibility also.
Yes.
And it's terrifying because you can be canceled.
You can be
Cancel culture.
people
Yeah.
will
You can say you
quote
can have the
you.
best intentions, but still it will be misconstrued. But at the end of the day, and that's what I was saying when we were getting ready, getting our hair and makeup done, I know I'm at a point where no matter what people say about me,
You're already comfortable.
I know who I am.
Yes.
So, of course, it'll impact me and it'll affect me. But at the end of the day, I'm just here trying to get a clue as well. And I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm trying.
We all
Yeah.
have to try, or not. Wala.
Yeah.
Nothing will happen.
So, should we wrap our pilot episode up?
Yes, we should.
I think it's that.
It was so fun talking to you.
I know. I think I got more comfortable as we were sitting here, and we will continue to do that as we
Yes.
release this monthly podcast.
So excited.
Make it
So
a little
excited.
more frequent,
Yes.
and who knows what doors will open and what things and opportunities we are able to
come up with.
learn and come
Learn.
up with.
Yeah.
So that's it for today's
That's it for today.
episode of Get a Clue.
the Thinkers Podcast.